All right, so I got a quick question, right? What was your introduction to LeBron James?
Um, my introduction to LeBron James was probably, I want to say, I really started watching basketball in 2003. So I guess
Mhm.
him coming into the league, but
Yeah.
at first I was kind of just watching the Heat, to be very honest.
Mhm.
But then my introduction to him was actually when I first really started focusing on LeBron was that 06-07 season when I started
Mhm.
expanding. And he was just, man, that was, I believe that was his first year where they made the play. It might have been his second year where he took the team to the playoffs. They were
Mhm.
top in the East, or home court advantage in the East, and just a menace to society at 22 years of age.
Mhm.
Ever since he came into the league with the biggest burden, I believe probably ever, to
Mhm.
be honest, just surpassed it in every
Yeah.
single way, man.
And I'm glad you mentioned the burden because I was a little bit before you.
Yeah.
I started watching basketball in 2002, and that just so happened to be LeBron's senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I caught like the whole hype and the whole wave and everything. And I'm gonna say something real quick. There was a question earlier in the year to where who was getting more hype between LeBron and Wemby. And all due respect to Wemby, it's not close. I think just especially being a kid, like because I was on my way to middle school. Like you started thinking like high school was right there afterwards. And so my first thing was I saw the Sports Illustrated cover. I was in some after school program in North Miami. And somebody just had the magazine just there. And it was like a high school kid. And then the ESPN game started coming, and then you start seeing the magazine articles and with the magazine cover again. And it was just like, man, who is this? And I remember specifically, I like when you say there was high expectations and a lot of hype on them. That was very real. That was the first time I was really hearing the word hype when it came to a basketball player. I'm 10 years old at the time. And for him to exceed it, I just don't, I still can't understand it. It's 21 years later, and I just don't even get it.
Yeah, literally his career is what people call a movie to the
Mhm.
max, man. Like he's been placed under the most scrutiny, the biggest microscope, magnifying glass, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
and just it's amazing watching him just never fold. To be
Mhm.
honest, I mean, say what you want, maybe nobody's perfect, but for most of the time, he's came out on top, and it's a testament to him. He was
Yeah.
also, it wasn't like he was it it's crazy the amount of hype he got. And obviously going back and listening to some of the stories, because Carmelo Anthony was
Yeah.
damn near the second best prospect.
Mhm.
He was obviously he wasn't on LeBron's level of hype,
Yeah.
but since LeBron came out, he was probably the right before LeBron, like in that time span after
Mhm.
Jordan really dominated the league for a while. He was Melo was getting the same respect as Braun was when he was coming out of Syracuse. So it's interesting to see just him take that burden. We're gonna get through his career, man.
Yeah.
Just shape shift into different modes whenever
Yeah.
needed. Still provide, lead the league in points all time. What a beautiful career as a
Mhm.
pass first player.
Yeah.
Like, man, LeBron is truly special. I feel like I'm glad we're doing an episode kind of giving him
Yeah.
his due diligence and his
Mhm.
flowers, because the biggest thing is you never know what you have until it's gone. I can't envision an NBA world without LeBron James.
Yeah.
So
And just to pull people behind the curtain a little
mhm.
bit, my intention with this episode was to talk about a bunch of different stuff, and the Lakers were a part of it, and LeBron James was a blip on the radar in that when I was coming up with this episode. But there was just so much stuff I had to mention about LeBron. It ended up becoming a whole episode. And so we just gonna go ahead and we just gonna go ahead and just start it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of Playoff File. I'm Kenny. No Frankie again today. He'll be back soon, but I do have Lou with me. Lou, what's going on with you?
Man, it's another great day, man. Another great day. It's a Thursday night. Got to see some good hoops today. One of the most probably fastest paced games I've seen in a while,
Mhm.
coming from a Miami Heat team. But we're here talking about LeBron James.
And funny enough, Miami Heat legend. We'll get to that part of his career later on. But for now,
Yeah.
we're gonna get right into the. So he gets drafted number 1 overall out of high school. Still a lot of questions about can he. I remember this hype too, just all the media attention and all the cameras at his first game in Sacramento, who had a really good team back then in 03, 04. Do you have any memories of his rookie year?
Very vaguely. I mean, the most I remember is that the year before, I believe the Cavs won like 19-ish games.
15, I think.
15. Yeah. 17 and 65. So right in the middle of both of us. They were still horrible, and just his impact, his ability to make them they didn't make the playoffs until his third year, I'm pretty sure. But
second year.
Okay, so his ability to make them a competitive team and a good enough team to just be in contention at all times in an era where people were playing 40 minutes a game. It was a different league, and so I don't really have a memory of his rookie season other than through the not any live memories, just rewatching some of the games, some of his highlights, some of the clips, some of his matchups. A lot of former NBA players talking about when he came onto the scene, it was like, everybody was trying to go at him and test him in different ways, and everybody was like, "Nah, yeah, he's got it. He's got it for sure."
Yeah, so I do remember a decent amount from his rookie year. He came out right out the gate against the Kings. I believe he had I'm not going to guess his stats right now. We didn't look up, to be honest with you. But just from then on, it was just this guy he should have been an all-star his rookie year. I don't know why he wasn't, but he definitely should have been. I think it's from the very beginning, you could see greatness. It wasn't just, all right, this is a good rookie. He's going to develop into something. He was there already. Bottom line, point blank. And imagine just me being 10 years old, new to basketball, and seeing just this thing that's never been seen before. So I'm into stuff. At the time, my favorite player is still Jason Kidd. You got somebody who's one of the best passers in the league as a rookie. At the time, I really liked Tracy McGrady because he was able to shoot and he was a real good dunker. LeBron's shot wasn't quite there yet, but the athleticism was ridiculous. I had never seen anybody that big, that fast before in any sport.
Yeah, he was moving at his own speed. I feel like that was kind of the whole appeal to him was nobody had really seen somebody this big move this way probably since Shaq coming out.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different topic, but it's, it was truly something special to see. I believe he measured at 250, 6'8", like 7'2" wingspan, just ridiculous coming out of high school, small city, Akron, made it to literally Cleveland, his home team, the team it was like the stars aligned. And then out of the stars with all this pressure, hometown pressure, and arose LeBron James, his rookie season. Like you said, it wasn't perfect by what we're accustomed to his standards being now, but it was like, damn, he's on the scene and he is here. Rookie of the year, his first year as well, and just helped that team doubled their wins, literally their first year, which is a tough feat for a rookie when the team wasn't, we just got going through them. They were not that good for a couple years.
And that Cavs stint in general, you kind of got into the playoffs stuff in his second year. Me personally, that 25 in the fourth quarter against Detroit is probably my favorite LeBron moment from that stint because it kind of gets forgotten how good that Detroit team was. And I think what happens is there's no quote unquote superstar names on that team. And so they kind of get left to the wayside, they weren't that good. No, that was an incredible team. Ben Wallace was gone by that time. Ben Wallace was in Chicago, but they were still just this ridiculous defense. And for LeBron to have all the naysayers and all the doubters against him with he's not clutch and he's not this and he's not that, to go against just this defensive stalwart of a team. And I watched this game recently. I watched this game 2 weeks ago and just carve them up at the end to get the win. It's just I just could not believe what I was watching.
Like you stated, this Detroit team didn't have Ben Wallace, but that didn't take away from the fact that schematically and they provided different answers or different. I don't want to say answers, but different questions for LeBron. And he was acing every test like it was his first. They didn't win that series, but you can just see I hate how much basketball culture is ring dependent.
Mhm.
So, and just wins and losses, but LeBron is the ultimate just, example. And he's probably like the biggest one where this whole thing comes into. I feel like this is where he originated, is this whole win-loss culture. He's the one who really brought this to life.
Yeah.
But his series against Detroit put him, like, started solidifying him. Like, it was one of those like, oh, he lost, but damn, we'll see him back here again for sure. Like, this is the last rodeo for the Pistons or for LeBron. Like this, the Eastern Conference has a problem on their hands for years to come.
Yeah, and at the time too, there was the criticism of him passing to his teammates at the end of games, which still happens every once in a while, and I still don't get.
It's crazy.
It's like for the simple fact that I don't care who the player is. I would much rather them trust their teammates with an open shot than to force a bad one with the game on the line. I just think a lot of that stuff is just ego, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Bingo.
But even still, just for him to have that kind of game, because the Pistons were like at the time, you kind of hear like make LeBron a scorer, which is a bad idea. But you also don't want to. It's just like there's nothing you can really do, and so the Pistons wanted him to kind of score at first, and he started doing it, and then they tried to. It was too late after a while. There was nothing to do through every coverage. Every matchup, he just could not be stopped. And then just going through the rest of that stint, he's, I believe, 2 MVPs at the time?
Yeah, so he won 2 MVPs with Cleveland prior to his
2 MVPs in Cleveland. No championships, which, once again, I feel like that's kind of one of the worst things to evaluate a player on.
Man, I have so much to say about this because
go right ahead.
It wasn't like LeBron, and at the end of the day, guys, like there's 5 players on the court for a reason. Mm-hmm. And this is the case with just about every sport, man. It is a team sport. LeBron wasn't given the best pieces. Mm-hmm. At the time, Cleveland wasn't viewed as an attractive destination. This was back when it was like free agency. Not a lot of players signing extensions and stuff. Like, people were going to big markets. Not a lot of players were, it was just a different era. It was an entirely different era. And he got scrutinized for going up against the Spurs, which were a dynasty at that time.
Forget about how good that team was too.
Yeah, that team was legit a dynasty at that time, with Timmy and they had Manu and Tony. Or young Tony, but still, they had some version of these players, and it wasn't like this was their first stint, like this wasn't their first time winning or their first time going this deep in the playoffs. They were a team that had been there for a while, and LeBron was just coming onto the scene. I believe he had just signed his rookie extension, so he was 1 year into his contract, I guess, his first contract. But the team around him, like the pieces weren't as. The team wasn't as well-rounded as that Spurs team. Like, he was at an obvious disadvantage. Him getting that far was truly just impressive. That year, he posted his singular best on off splits. The team was 21 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court. Like, did everybody hear me correctly? Like, that is an absolutely insane statistic. 21 points per 100 possessions better with LeBron James on the court. That is like the equivalent of from the best team in basketball to dead ass the worst team in basketball.
Yeah. And I will say that 07 team, they did have, I would say, good players, not stars. But at the time, you got to remember, it was Shaq and Wade in Miami. Like, at the time, it was, you needed 2 stars to win. And it had always really been the case in that sense. So Larry Hughes was a very good player. Mo Williams was on his way up. He had his best year in 09, not 07. But they had good pieces built around LeBron, but not enough for it to make sense for LeBron to win a championship. So, like you said, for that team to even get to the finals is extremely impressive, especially if I'm not mistaken. Well, that was before KG joined Boston.
Yeah.
But it's just even still getting past that Detroit team, like we talked about earlier. That was just an incredible feat in itself.
No, yeah, and I believe he was 20, 21, 22 at the time. So
22, yeah.
Yeah, 22 at the time. So it was incredible. Like, much to what you said, the team itself had some good players. It's not to discredit, like you said, Larry Hughes gets overlooked. He had a couple great years for them. Mo Williams was, quite literally probably the second best offensive
he was
player
all-star
they had. Yeah, so he was, believe that was they also had Ilgaskis and Drew Gooden, just some vets and stuff. But like you said, they were missing that complementary piece as opposed to, you looked across the court and here you have Tim Duncan, you got Manu, you got Tony P. Like you're looking at these players and they were all either fringe all-stars or had just currently been. I mean, Tim Duncan had obviously been an all-star.
Yeah.
But we're looking at this star-studded team who had experience there, which is a very key word. Often gets overlooked. And just it was I believe after losing that, the scrutiny got to him so much. It was kind of the beginning of the end in his tenure in Cleveland. So it's cool how that kind of cool and sad how that kind of transitioned. How he started, that's kind of like the transition to LeBron becoming a villain era.
And so after the 07 loss, there's usually this attitude around, well, in sports in general, where, all right, we'll be back next year. But that summer, the Celtics make their moves, and now they have Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen on their team, and Rajon Rondo is coming up as a all-star player. And so those next couple of years, LeBron's struggling to get past them. He never does. Well, no, actually, they go to the finals. No, not finals. They go to the conference finals in 2009.
Right, but yeah. So the year the Heat lost to the year before LeBron came, we lost to them in 6, and then they beat LeBron in the conference finals.
Yeah.
And that was the year they made it to the championship.
Yeah, they lose to Orlando in the conference finals. And I remember the scrutiny starting to really build up against LeBron. And then the next year you have the image of him taking his Cleveland jersey off after losing to the Celtics. And you kind of, well, me personally, I didn't think it was done. But looking back on it, it was kind of clear the frustration was just a little too much.
Yeah. Scrutiny got to him, man. No, go ahead. Absolutely.
It was just, and at the same time, you can't really blame him because you have this superstar player, and he's in this, even with it being very close to his hometown, he's in this area where players don't really enjoy going. They gave him Shaq, but too late. They tried different things, but it was just, they just weren't getting the job done. As a Heat fan, where were you during the decision?
So I was, to be very honest, I was in my aunt's house. I remember this like it was yesterday because, started watching basketball in 03, 06, 07, really started picking up, and just Dwayne Wade was a phenom in his own right. So I started watching, the games more closely. Him versus LeBron was always a big thing down here in Miami. So that specific day, I was actually at my aunt's house. Rest in peace to my uncle. And we were just there. I remember just being on the couch, just awaiting the decision. I believe I was like 13 at the time. We had been moving a lot. So I was just fresh out of like 7th or 8th grade in the summer. I'm just vibing, having a good old time. And I had to, back then I was on ESPN every day, just waiting. Cause we didn't have no Twitter. It wasn't like Twitter was a thing. It was, you had to like be there glued to your TV waiting for it. And I remember as soon as the decision came on, I remember literally just screaming, running up and down the house, 13-year-old kid, jumping, calling my dad, we got LeBron. He can't even understand me. He's at work. He's trying to hang up the phone. He's like, call me later. And I'm like, no, you got to listen. Like, we got LeBron James. And it was as a Heat fan, it was thrilling. I'm pretty sure for the rest of the league, I mean, I'm not pretty sure. I'm 100% sure everybody fucking hated it aside from us. So,
Man. So
hence the villain era began.
So the decision was actually 2 days before my 18th birthday. So
Happy birthday, Kenny.
Man, so I'm fresh out of high school, living with my mom still. And I'm on the couch. She's like, she'll watch a playoff game like once every 4 years. She's that kind of basketball fan, but LeBron is LeBron. So obviously there's a chance of LeBron coming to Miami. She wants us all to watch it. I'm gonna watch it anyway. So we just there watching it. That summer, I had no, like, I could not be convinced it was going to happen. I just couldn't be convinced it was going to happen. It just, that stuff it never happened before. So it was like, you just can't imagine. And then you got to remember too, leading up to it, Dwayne Wade was also a free agent.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you were pretty young, but
I remember
there was a real fear of losing to Dwayne Wade.
He was gone.
Yeah, there was the whole "We Want Wade" campaign. There was the Chicago rumors, which we ended up finding out were true.
Yep.
Him and LeBron were on their way to Chicago, and whatever happened, and they ended up coming back to Miami. But
so one of the stories I actually that used to get tossed around. I used to work at the Heat Arena for a while. One of the stories that used to constantly get tossed around by one of the he was like a trainer there, like he was not like a trainer, like he did like the physical therapy on the players. He was like, I'm gonna keep it real honest with y'all. Like, we had a feeling Wade was gone too. They said that one of the biggest shifts in the component were Chris Bosh telling him, like, no, man, like, I want to go with you to Miami. Like, I want I don't want to go to, because Chicago was it was, LeBron was kind of, it was Chicago, Miami, or Cleveland. But supposedly, I remember just every day, man, going on ESPN, just reading the tabs, and it was, it was mostly Cleveland or Miami. And then as soon as Chris Bosh made that decision, essentially the trickle down effect, Bosh, Wade, and then Bron. It was like all in a matter of 24 hours.
Yeah,
it was a hectic time.
Yes, I remember vividly. So I might have been like, because I was trying to. I'm a community college dropout. I'm not ashamed of it. But at the time, I was in school, so I might have just missed it. I ended up either going home or not checking. I had a BlackBerry at the time, not checking my phone. But I found out somehow that Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh had gone on ESPN and announced that Dwayne Wade was coming back to Miami, and I was good with that because, like you said, we thought he was gone. So I was like, all right, they could build something with LeBron. And then Chris Bosh came. And I don't think people really remember how good Chris Bosh was in Toronto.
Yep.
But that was like, all right, you know what? We're getting over the hump now. Boston's not seeing us. That's it. It's over. I didn't think LeBron was coming. But that was my attitude already. Like, look, Boston got to see us. And then I'm watching the decision. LeBron says, I'm taking my time to South Beach. I'm not going to get into how much I hate when people call Miami South Beach. That's just a whole... that's
a conversation for another
different conversation.
I lived in Miami my entire life. I've been to South Beach one time.
I went to South Beach. This is a weird story, but before high school, I went to South Beach one time. It was a field trip, like a church field trip to like a financial panel that was held inside of a club during the daytime, a club called Mansion. And people on the panel were like Trina, like Joel Santana, Susie Orman, and Joe Budden. It made no sense.
Joe Budden, what a...
But I was like 12 years old. We had that field trip. And then I went to South Beach a couple of times in high school. Didn't enjoy it, but I went because my friends went.
Yeah.
And then I worked over there. Terrible place. I hate it to death. But back to the story.
Yeah.
So LeBron says that, and to this day, I don't remember what my reaction was because I didn't pass out, but I blacked out. Like whatever I did, whatever jumping, pumping my fist, I don't remember any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go to sleep excited about it, wake up the next morning, and it's like pure hatred on TV.
Everywhere.
And I couldn't understand it because a couple years before, when KG went to the Celtics, me just being a basketball fan, I was excited about it. I was like, oh man, KG finally get a chance because KG's one of my favorite players.
Yep.
So man, he finally get a chance to win. Paul Pierce, he says crazy stuff in the media now, but he was a very good player. And before the Heat rivalry, I really liked this game.
I never
And to
liked
be
Paul
honest,
Pierce. I can't
but
lie.
to be honest, like he's retired. That it's a different era now in the Heat
Mhm.
Celtics rivalry. Paul Pierce was a very good player, and Ray Allen, like, end of the day, you can't hate Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Nah,
Like,
nah,
and so
never.
I was excited about the team, and so to see like the hate and the vitriol of it, and then that same day, I get the email from the Miami Heat saying, "Hey, we know you're excited about LeBron and Bosh and Wade's coming back. We're having this event at the arena. Print out your free ticket, and we'll see you at, I think it was 6 p.m." And this thing gets so thrown out of context, like it's been thrown out of context forever. So me and my friend Chris, we go, and we just sitting in there in the crowd. DJ Ari is on. He's DJing. He's doing a great job of it, but you can tell he's stalling. And it comes to find out, they were signing the contracts backstage, and so they finally come out through the floor, and they turn around. Crowd's going crazy. They give the high fives that they always show on TV, and then they immediately sit down and get interviewed by Jason Jackson. It wasn't a party. It wasn't. It was just. So anybody at home who wasn't there or is not really, so if you've ever seen the image of Shaq arriving in Miami in a diesel truck and shooting a water gun into the crowd, that was the exact same event 6 years before. The Heat just used to do that. I think they might have also did something for Alonzo Mourning. They just used to do that, and then like the media scrutiny kind of ruined it. But so anyway, they do that. Crowd's going crazy with every word. Jason Jackson asked Dwayne Wade a question. We're excited about that. He asked LeBron. He asked Bosh. He asked LeBron at some point, "Where do you see this team going?" LeBron kind of looked and smirked at the crowd, and he said something about a championship. And he's playing on the crowd. He's like,
Yeah.
So he says like, not 3, crowd go crazy. Not 4, crowd get louder. Not 5, not 6. He signed a 4-year contract. So I don't think anybody who knew that in the building took it as a real promise. It was just like, he was just hyping the crowd up. Like
Emotions were high.
Yeah. But I don't think he even believed what he said. And Dwayne Wade came out recently on Shannon Sharp show and said, like, obviously it wasn't a real thing. But that pissed a lot of people off. So like,
we were seeing that for 4 years into his tenure in Miami.
Yeah, and by maybe like a couple days after that, I just decided I'm not watching basketball media anymore. And so for 8 years, I just didn't watch any media. I just watched the game, and that's how people who were familiar with me, they know I have a different perspective on a lot of stuff. That's why I just have nobody's takes in my mind. I'm completely unfamiliar with most people. I'm not trying to sound cool. It's just I was just over it. And so the season starts. They're not very good. What do you remember about that time?
Oh man, it was a really tough time. I'll be honest. Being 13 at the time, having expectations set as high as they were. I remember first game out of the gate, they played Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally lost, and I could not fathom this team of this many talented players losing a basketball game.
Yeah.
And I believe they started something like 9, I believe it was 9-8 through their first 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then they held a players only meeting. Just basically LeBron hated Spoelstra, which was a thing. Later grew to kind of respect him a little bit. Obviously now he respects him a lot, but for some reasons he was right. For some reasons he was wrong. It was a team trying to figure out a lot of egos all together. The KG, Paul Pierce, everybody else, that was always the comparison to them three. I felt like the KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen teams, but they were all very. I hate when you call people role players, but their combinations kind of meshed better. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
They weren't ball dominant players, or in KG and Paul Pierce's, they could get their own, but Ray Allen was kind of like the perfect little piece there. KG's defense was a perfect little piece there. And this was in a time where Dwayne Wade had came off a 30-point per game season.
Yeah.
He was at the peak of his powers. LeBron was at the peak of his powers. Chris Bosh was at the peak of his powers. Just three of the most top 15, top 10-ish offensive skilled players. And that, it was just a different time, a different era. And all I remember was like, damn, why isn't this working? So it was just very curious seeing that team kind of, we're going to talk about that team was awful outside of those three players.
Yeah.
but then, that opens your eyes to, damn, it can't just be one player. Like, it should never just be one player. And, we take a lot of that things for granted, but LeBron was doing LeBron-like things. We just weren't, it wasn't translating to victories. Mm-hmm. Him and Wade weren't meshing well on the court. As good as their friendship was off the court, at first it was a struggle with spacing. It was a struggle playing off ball. Things that neither one of those players had been asked to do really for the prior 7-8 years of their career. Mm-hmm. So, how did you feel heading into that season after those first, couple games as well, man? So to me, it was tough.
I had my excitement, obviously. But in the back of my mind, I knew this isn't a deep team. Like, they brought in Jonas Ilgauskas, who was good, but he's at the end of his career.
34.
They have Eric Dampier on the team. This is just if one of these guys. My thought was if one of these guys gets hurt, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up seeing in the finals, which I don't even like bringing up. And LeBron gets a lot of blame for, but I'll give Rick Carlisle more credit for those finals. Just the way he was able to understand LeBron wasn't really ready to go against that kind of zone defense. And so, go ahead. You about to say something? No.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to put it. I do think LeBron is to blame. As much as
I can't disagree with you either.
Yeah. As much as we're here, and opinions about where you think he ranks, whatever, all time. That doesn't.
Yeah, I don't care about that stuff.
To me, that's irrelevant. Point blank period. He was one of the greatest players, or is one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball. And at the end of the day, that series specifically, there's a fine line between trusting your teammates and deferring to your teammates. And he started doing a little bit of the other one. And that's kind of where my critique was. Again, I fully understand your point. Rick Carlisle coached a heck of a series, and he coached circles around Spoelstra as the biggest Spoelstra stand you'll meet to this day. It was 13 years ago. It was a different Spoelstra. It was a different LeBron. It was a different Dwayne. And the team wasn't ready with the pieces around them. And I don't think they were fully trusted into the head coach. It was kind of, there was some back and forth there. It took a while for that to get settled, but I do think LeBron deserves some credit, specifically in the fourth quarters. I mean, his stats, he averaged like 19 or 20 for that series, which is ridiculous that people clowned him for averaging 20 in a series and, not being good enough when, and they're kind of right to a certain degree, but it is what it is. So I was just, man, that series really, really hurt. And I'm pretty sure we'll talk about him at some point, man. Dirk, man, Jesus Christ. He was a bad motherfucker during that whole series. There were no answers for him. So it's a lot of credit. LeBron deserves some blame. Spoelstra deserves some blame. The whole Heat team deserves some blame.
Yeah, for sure.
Carlisle deserves credit. Dirk deserves credit. Jason Terry deserves credit.
Yeah.
That's kind of worse.
And then I don't know what happened in the offseason because part of it, like we know the story, Dwayne Wade told LeBron, be LeBron. But also, it was very noticeable that next season they brought in to what Eric Spoelstra was trying to do. And that's interesting to me because Eric Spoelstra was still very young. And if I hadn't known his background and he is the coach that was assigned to develop Dwayne Wade and kind of turn Dwayne Wade into who he is, I would have been a lot more impatient with him back then. But I did know that, and he had my trust. So they come back the next season, and first of all, the reason I give Spoelstra a lot of credit for these teams, although obviously they had the talent, I'm not taking away from the players.
For sure.
But there was a defensive buy-in with those teams where, like, if you look back again, like if you watch a game from that era, you just can't even fathom the stuff they were doing defensively.
It was other tier defensively. It was LeBron's best defensive rating ever. He got LeBron to literally turn into, top 3 defender in the league.
Should have been defensive player of the year.
Should have been defensive player of the year. Just an absolute hound defensively. Him and Wade, they figured out that, the offense wasn't going to be there all the time just due to some of their shooting inconsistencies at the time. Chris Bosh still wasn't really known as a floor spacer by this point. I believe he wasn't even shooting more than a 3 a game at that up until like his 3rd season with the Heat. So it was just a complete different switch.
Yeah.
A lot of new things. To this day, it sounds crazy. This is like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Chris Bosh was not viewed as a center.
Right.
And he was like 6'11", 240. It's funny because Alonzo Mourning was just like 6'10", 230, and he was, but regardless, he wasn't viewed as a big because as a true 5, and it was just a lot of forward thinking from Spo, a lot of new meshes, and a lot of credit also to LeBron and to Shane Battier. That was one of the big acquisitions that offseason.
Yeah.
That helped to start right the ship, I guess, kind of get LeBron's legacy. I don't want to say saved. Do you think that saved LeBron's legacy at the time? After the first ring against OKC, sorry.
I wouldn't necessarily say saved because I feel like he's such a good player. He would have ended up winning somewhere anyway.
Okay.
But it definitely shut a lot of people up because the LeBron no championship stuff was real brutal, which is kind of crazy to look back on because he was like 25 years old. And it's just like, what? Like, I get it. He's like this great player, but what do you really want? And so also I do want to just not to go too far back, but to give LeBron and Spo credit for this after the finals loss against the Mavs. Spo and LeBron worked together, and now LeBron comes back with this high post game.
Yep. Game changer.
Yeah. And so now you better not play a zone because LeBron's gonna get in that middle
and pick it apart.
He's, I consider, top 3 passer of all time. We know what he can do off the dribble. And it was just a wrap from there. Like, I understand LeBron was always an incredible player, but after that finals loss, just took off. Like, it was something completely different. Yeah.
That following year, I feel like the OKC championship was kind of like I don't want to say nothing's easy in the NBA, but it was probably the perfect scenario for that LeBron Wade team going up against really young James, Russ, Ibaka, KD team. Jeff Green, I believe, was on that team, if I'm not mistaken. And just going up against these young players at that time, it helped them set their footing. But man, oh man, we have to talk because I personally think this is the best basketball player I saw was the year after Kenny.
Oh yeah, 2013.
2013 LeBron James. What are your thoughts? Because I was, as much hate as Spoelstra had gotten after that 2011 run, him and Bron. 2013 LeBron was the most efficient LeBron has ever been in his career. And it was a tier of efficiency that at the time, not even big men were doing.
Right.
Centers weren't shooting what LeBron was shooting from the field. Centers didn't have LeBron's true shooting percentages at the time. And this was still like a
center league pretty much.
It was, I would say we're kind of transitioning out of the center league, but it was still very relevant. We still had very, very good players at that position, a la Dwight's and all of these other names in there, Timmy, and even though he wasn't really a 5, but you get what I'm saying. It was a big league, players playing close to the basket. And LeBron was really doing this from all areas of the floor. Yeah. His post game got a lot better. Like you said, the spacing started getting better. Chris Bosh started getting better. And you just really, I feel like that 2013 team really started to hit their stride. I feel like that was probably the best team. Yeah. And then I'm curious, how did you feel about LeBron specifically in that against the Pacers for that period of stretch? Because I feel like that was the Pacers. It was a tough time for them because it was a lot of Pacers, a lot of Boston. And it was consistent hurdles that they tried to get over.
And those Pacers teams were extremely good, but I think it was just at the end of the day, LeBron was LeBron at that point. Yep. There was just nothing that could be done. And remember, Dwayne Wade struggled a whole lot in one of those series, and LeBron kept him afloat.
Yep.
And then once Dwayne got his game back together, it was over with. And I also, last thing I want to say about the 2013 season, either going into that season or at some point around the beginning, he did an interview where he said he wanted to be Defensive Player of the Year. And I was like, oh, because LeBron in his first stint in Cleveland, he wasn't really known as a defender. Like he had to chase down blocks and that was great highlights, but he wasn't really known as a defender. But then you could really see, because us being Heat fans, we know from our whole lives how much this team takes defense seriously.
Yep.
And so for LeBron James, this superstar since he was 15, 16 years old, to decide this is what I'm focused on right now is defense. You just knew at that point, like they couldn't lose.
Yeah, it was a complete switch in his mentality, and it was a possession. It was on a possession by possession basis. Like him, his ability to just almost, I don't want to say single-handedly, they had a lot of great defenders, but just turn games on the defensive side of the game. Because, you know, back then it was like you were still walking the ball up the court every single time. So that was LeBron's way of getting himself some easy ones and just being, and it was just, he was wrecking havoc defensively. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so then they repeat 2013. There's really nothing that can be said about him negatively at that point.
Not a thing.
Now, the next season, not necessarily him. Me personally, watching that team, I kind of felt maybe halfway through that it was kind of over.
Yep.
There was not only just Dwayne Wade energies, it just felt like because that 2013 team was so much fun. That was like they did the Harlem Shake video, all that stuff.
That was peak.
Yeah. And then 2014, it just didn't feel the same. You had Dwayne Wade injuries, like I said, and they looked kind of tired of each other. I'm not going to speculate on that. But it's also been reported that they were tired of each other at that point. The front office made some moves to save some money that really pissed off LeBron and Wade. And so when did you realize that LeBron was leaving, or did you even realize it?
So I really didn't. I didn't really think of it. I'm gonna be very honest. I felt like he was at that point in time. I felt like he was gonna stay. I felt like there was gonna be some retooling that had to be done around the team, but I thought that they can manage to stay competitive enough to try again and give it basically like another run at it. You feel me?
Yeah. And so for me, it was in the back of my mind that LeBron's contract was coming up. And just looking at how the team was, even though their talent got them to the finals, I felt like it was probably 50-50 at that point. But what happened is one day I'm sitting in a barbershop and they got the TV on. And the Cavs made a small trade. They traded like Jared Jack or somebody to dump some salary. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's over. So that's when I found out pretty much. And then the article came out and it was like, all right, I knew pretty much. But when did you find out? And where were you?
I don't really remember when he left. I don't remember kind of where I was at. I remember kind of more of the reactions, you know, being in Miami. Obviously, growing up here my whole life, I feel like a lot of negative shit was being said towards LeBron for no reason, if I'm being quite honest. I kind of, not that I felt like he was going to stay here forever, but I didn't think he was going to leave that soon. But I knew at some point he wanted to go back to Cleveland. Yeah, it was like I feel like every Heat fan when he came knew that he was going to go back to Cleveland at some point. Like he had to return there, whether it was to retire, to do something. But it was just kind of me. I felt like I was more defending him. Like you guys can't be grateful. He helped us at the time get to 2 chips. He got, he helped Dwayne lift 2 and 3 up. It was a whole different thing. He started a whole new trend in basketball. Yeah. So when he left, I was farewell. Yeah. That's kind of how I felt.
I wasn't really mad because like you said, everybody knew he was going back to Cleveland at some point, and it did make sense for him to go while he was still young. So he went while he was still young, and just knowing Cleveland's history with championships, like, I'm not saying LeBron has an ego, because I don't think he has the ego he probably like I would have if I was that talented. But it like the sentiment of him wanting to bring a championship to Cleveland after that long drought is just. I feel like everybody kind of knew he had, and with him being right from Akron. And so he goes back there. He teams up with Kyrie Irving, who was very impressive as I believe that was as a rookie, and then like a couple years before, teams up with him. I'm curious how Kyrie is going to handle that at the time because Kyrie needs the ball at the time. Mm-hmm. But LeBron just finished playing with Dwayne Wade. And we know if anybody can raise the level of a player, of a teammate, it's LeBron James. And so watching those teams, what did you think of them when they first got back together?
To be very honest, I felt like that was actually probably my favorite time watching LeBron James as a player.
Yeah.
I felt like the chip on his shoulder. It was the first time, he had a chip when he was here, but it was kind of like the first time where everybody was like, okay, he's back.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of, rallying for LeBron to at least give one to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And he was just that team. The makeup of that team was super interesting. They had gotten, I believe, 3 first round picks in the 4 years he left.
Yeah.
Once they got lucky in the lottery, that's a different story because they weren't really that bad, but they got lucky in the lottery and then they proceeded to draft Anthony Bennett. Anyways, they ended up trading the pick, getting Kevin Love, building some I want to say like a version of the Wade Kyrie Bosh thing. Obviously not the same. We're not comparing players, but we're kind of comparing like they're similar play styles, a guard, a stretch big, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just really rooting for LeBron. How did first season when they go into this was obviously they go into the playoffs and
14,
this is
15.
Yeah. And then it's the beginning of probably the best rivalry sports has seen in a while. Yeah. At least new rivalry. I'm not talking about 1960s Boston Lakers and shit like that. But you know what I'm saying? Like it was the start of, I believe, what was probably the most polarizing rivalry we had seen in basketball for LeBron James up until that point.
Yeah. And so if you remember, going into it, well, not necessarily going into it, but just the way the Warriors came out that year, you kind of knew they would meet each other in the finals. But me personally, as much as I've been watching LeBron since I was in middle school and love his game, he's one of the best players ever. Steph Curry, my introduction to him when he was in college, to this day, Steph Curry is the best college player I've ever seen. So you watch more college than I do, so maybe you have a different person, but I've always been a huge Steph Curry fan. And so I wasn't necessarily rooting for anybody, but I just needed to see that matchup. And so I want to know your experience watching those 2015 finals.
Oh man, it was a truly fascinating. It was a blend of a still, again, similar to, they were just revolutionizing basketball at that point. Curry was, and it was almost like LeBron was, I don't want to say old, but people were questioning, how much longer can he do this? Come to find out, it's been 8 years and motherfucker's still good. But it was kind of like the beginning of that question, and then Curry's going to take the baton and et cetera, et cetera. It was like kind of like a rivalry between, and I thought it was phenomenal basketball. I loved every single one of those series. Was just truly spectacular up until when KD got there. That's a different story. But no, when it was because it was more team-based basketball. It was not as much superstar talent, but still it was a different feel around it, and I really, really enjoyed watching that series. Draymond was started coming into his own. Obviously Curry, Clay. We had LeBron, LeBron and Kyrie. Like it was just everybody was kind of matched up with a version of each other, and it was just beautiful, beautiful basketball.
And then the Cavs have their injuries. They lose that final series. The next year, once again, we know what the matchup is going to be. That began to be a problem for a lot of people. Me personally, I loved it I loved it. I felt like I just love watching high level basketball. I don't care who it is. I don't care what the situation is. I just loved it, right? And so 2016 finals come. In my opinion, without bias, because obviously I'm a Dwayne Wade fan, 06 means a lot to me forever. I feel like the 2016 finals are probably the best finals ever. So, because me personally, I thought the Cavs were done. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you. I thought they were finished.
Yeah, well, once they went down 3-1, I thought there was no way LeBron wins a championship with Cleveland ever.
Yeah,
because at that point you kind of felt like they were on a decline.
Warriors.
Yeah, and the Warriors were just at an all-time peak. It was literally the best basketball team, regular season basketball team that the world had seen up until that point. Mm-hmm. Broke the record that year. And, you know, there's obviously criticism about the Draymond suspension and whether or not they got. Look, man,
it's Draymond's fault.
They still played 2 games after. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's a whole narrative. I felt kind of like to discredit what LeBron and then the Kyrie hitting the shot and LeBron deferring. It's narratives, man, and a lot of people, man. It was a spectacular performance. Just those series were truly just sensational. That 2016 series was the year that they won. It was best finals series I'd ever seen.
Finally get one for Cleveland,
and
for me that 30 for 30 about the Cleveland championships had just come out. They had to actually go back and edit it and add this championship to it. So I had already seen the 30 for 30. And so knowing what that meant for the city, I could see why LeBron was so emotional. And even with me being a Heat fan, and he left my team, whatever it is, I couldn't be happier for him. Because that was just like, what was it, 50 years since Cleveland had won it? It was something crazy. Like, it was just miserable stuff.
The most depressing sports town that there was. And he literally saved them.
And then that summer, and I'm sure we have different opinions about this, but that summer, KD goes to the Warriors. Me personally, again, and I know I'm in a minority about this, and I completely understand why I'm in a minority about it.
After you said that, I know we disagree. But
I just love high level basketball, and I was so sick of that OKC team with what Billy Donovan's doing right now in Chicago. Just a lot of isolation, just no direction to the offense, just throwing it all away. And so I understand, like, KD's one of the best players in the league. This team just won 73 games. Don't do it. Me personally, at that time, the Heat weren't winning a championship anyway. I just wanted to see great basketball. So there was curiosity, and then understanding how well KD shoots and how much they run and how much they pass. I was also like, this could be fun. I know we disagree on that, so I'm gonna just let you say what you want to say on that.
I hated it. There's no other fucking way of putting it. It genuinely pissed me off, and I'm not here to call anybody any names. At the time, I was definitely calm. I was ripping into KD. Just it's the competitor in me.
Yeah.
Personally, I couldn't stand him going to literally the greatest team the NBA had seen, and at the time, Durant was, if not the best, probably a top 3 player in the league.
Not 1A and 1B.
Yeah, it was probably 1A, 1B. I said top 3 to be safe, but probably the second best player in basketball. Teaming up with what was the 3rd best player in basketball, just so they can go ahead and defeat LeBron. And I feel like even LeBron was like, damn, like this is looking too much, man. Like it kind of ruined his stint there. I just, at that point, it got old because it was like, this team was already on a decline and the other team was peaking. And then instead of peaking, they they just, it was a whole new level that they unlocked that nobody had unlocked yet. Like they had passed all the boss levels and everybody was, on the tutorial, and it was just annoying.
So I won't lie. By 2017, I was getting bored.
Yep. It was boring.
By 2018, I was completely over it. Now, you said 2013 was the best LeBron. I'm, even as a Heat fan, I'd argue 2018 might have been the best LeBron.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
The
I see both sides of it. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, it's very tough. The reason I say 2013 is the defensive reasons,
Yeah.
and his efficiency was through the roof. But in the playoffs, I don't think we can disagree. 2018,
Right.
and
Yeah.
sometimes those two narratives kind of get mixed up, which is kind of why I see both sides. Like 2013, best regular season. 2018, LeBron in wasn't that the year, if I'm not mistaken, Andre Iguodala got an NBA Finals MVP?
I think no, KD 2016. No, 2015.
You're right. I'm sorry.
2015.
Yeah,
And
2015.
KD got 17 and 18.
Yep, exactly. And crazy Curry never got one. But anyways, yeah. It was just kind of you could just tell it was, I don't know. I hated at that point. I was bored with the NBA. I'm gonna be very honest. I felt like just too much of the same. Everybody knew what it was. It was like everybody was lining up for 82 games to see the same motherfuckers lift up the trophy, and nobody was really able to do anything at the time. And then I'm pretty sure you're going to get to it when LeBron leaves.
Yeah. And so obviously KD goes to the Warriors. It's just you're not beating them. So I don't even know if I watched the full 2018 finals, and I don't miss a lot of basketball, but I was just like, all right, whatever. I don't care anymore.
I didn't watch a single game in the 2018 finals.
Then I see the tweet. He went to the Lakers of all teams. Now, you didn't like the KD transaction. At the time, I was a Laker hater. I'm not anymore. I don't hate anybody anymore. I just like basketball. But at the time, and I didn't think they could win either. But it was just like, why? I just felt like I don't feel this way anymore. But I feel like at the time, like the Laker brand was just,
it was ugly, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So he goes over there. They're not very good to start out. Obviously, what happens they make the trade, send the young guys to New Orleans. They bring in Anthony Davis. Things change. Fast forward to the bubble, which I don't discredit this championship. I think that's one of the dumbest things. Basketball is basketball to me.
Absolutely.
LeBron at this point is 15 years into his career, and he hasn't slowed down yet. and he's playing with Anthony Davis, who a lot of people weren't paying attention to New Orleans because they weren't good. But Anthony Davis in New Orleans was completely ridiculous.
He was in constant conversation to being one of the most skilled players, if not the most skilled player in all of basketball at that time.
Yeah. And the defense speaks for itself.
Yeah, that's one of the most well-rounded is what I meant to say. Yeah. It was, Giannis was getting the stats and the team was winning, and Anthony Davis just couldn't stay healthy. But every time he was on the floor, Anthony Davis was sensational during that stint. Him and the DeMarcus Cousins teams were great. And once he teamed up with LeBron, that bubble run was, I feel like they just ran through everybody.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a Heat fan, I'm pretty sure we have some different opinions about, or maybe we have the same opinion about how I kind of want to say lucky they got that they, not to discredit LeBron, but man, I'm gonna be honest, if we had a fully healthy roster, I'm not saying we winning, but I'm saying it's probably going 7.
Been closer. Yeah, it would have been closer.
Yeah.
What I will say though, Anthony Davis couldn't miss.
Oh no.
And that annoyed me to death because he's not like, he has a decent like mid-range jumper sometimes, but he couldn't miss 3. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? So anyway, they win that championship. Me personally, even as a Heat fan, I'm not mad at it. It's like, whatever, it's LeBron, what can you do? And so from that point on, the Lakers have been kind of struggling at times, kind of good at times. They've been kind of, I don't really know how to describe them. And so we'll just fast forward to this year. What have you seen so far from the Lakers this year?
Kind of, I think you said it perfectly. They've been, that's kind of the best way to describe them. They're just, I kind of want to say like the definition of an average NBA team. The most like 500 team I've seen. It's not to, and again, it's not to LeBron's discredit.
Right.
Actually, like he's the reason they're around a 500 team.
Yeah.
If we're sitting back here and we're being honest, he's posting ridiculous stats for it being his 22nd
year.
21st year in the league. Just honestly keeping the team afloat. Put up 44 points the other day. Today, yesterday got him another win. He should not be doing this for 41. Like the craziest stat that I saw was if you take every single player into their 21st NBA season and you add all their stats, LeBron James beats him in every category.
Like it just makes no sense. And I think the team they surrounded him with this year, it's not that they lack talent, right? Because D'Angelo Russell just went stupid last night. But it's like it's LeBron James, and then everyone else is like the definition of inconsistent. And it's just like, what's he supposed to do with this? Right. So you have, like I said, D'Angelo Russell went off, and he also had a very good regular season last year. I don't know how many people paid attention to Minnesota, but he was very good in the regular season, and then he just could not hit a shot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is great of a player he is. Even when healthy, is like a every other game type thing. Sometimes it's effort with him. Sometimes he just can't make a shot. It's a little frustrating.
Super.
Even with me not being a Laker fan, it's like, all right, come on, like you have all this potential and you show us every other night who you are. Just do it all the time. But it just doesn't work out that way. I do want to shout out Cam Reddish though, because Cam Reddish was this major prospect, right? And offensively, I know he's still not that guy. But I'm happy about him having a role in the NBA finally. And I never expected him to be a defender. And so credit to him for that. But I mean, you have LeBron relying on Anthony Davis, who incredible player, Hall of Famer, whether you like it, whether anybody likes it or not. Not really consistent. You have D'Angelo Russell, really good player, not consistent. And then you're looking at the Jackson Hayeses, Cam Reddishes, and Gabe Vincent's of the world.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't think it's a really complete roster. I don't think it's nowhere near as good of a roster as it should be.
Yeah.
They are at least around the spacing around those two guys, like, AD and Braun isn't exactly I think they're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. And you can just tell. Yeah, you could just tell, man, like it hurt me to see. I think Gabe Vincent was shooting like 7% from three.
Yeah, it's pretty tough out there for him. He's injured, but before he got hurt, it was rough.
Yeah, but when you're playing the Torian Princes of the world 30 minutes and you're your best players all kind of play in the same area of the floor, it's kind of tough, and it doesn't make LeBron's job any easier, which is more credit to him for what he's able to do. Yeah, for his team this year.
Yeah, and I mean. It's going to be tough for them unless they make some kind of move with the deadline. But it really just credit to LeBron for keeping them afloat. And I originally thought of this episode when he passed 39,000 points, like we mentioned earlier, which is ridiculous for a player who's passed first, scored second, to be the all-time leading scorer. And at some point this year, if he stays healthy, he's going to reach 40,000 points.
Fucking
in his
insane.
Career. Completely ridiculous. And so just this whole episode and this whole thing, like I said in the beginning, we didn't even intend to do this, but it just got to a point where when I was planning this show and we had to just give LeBron his just due because there was just way too much to talk about. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of Playoff Files. I'm Kenny. Lou, anything else you want to say to the people?
No, man. Stay tuned, man.
All right. Give them your socials.
Oh, yeah. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Saucy Takes. Takes at the end with a Z, no spaces. And shout out Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Absolutely. I'm Kenny. Follow me at Kenny Spence NBA. I only post on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. So you can follow me there anyway. I'll get there eventually, but I'm not there. If you like the intro and outro music, that's by my brother Devin Spence. You can follow him on Instagram or TikTok at Black Glow Music. That being said, we'll see y'all next time.